Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on the best supports for patch 5.20. So first up I have Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench is probably the best support in the game for keeping the AD carry safe. His W just provides so much leeway for his AD carry. Even if your AD carry isn't very good and their positioning isn't very good, then Tahm Kench is probably the best support that you can pair up with an AD carry who isn't very confident in the role, because his W just allows his AD carry to go aggressive. They can get caught out by a CC ability, and then Tahm Kench can just come in and eat them and take them to safety. So I think that he's just a really good pick because of his W mainly. He's also great with the mobile AD carries because he can keep them really safe with his W. His single target CC is also quite good. His Q provides a very nice slow, and then once you get the 3 stacks of your passive, you can eat the opponent, it just provides some really nice single target CC. He is also super hard to kill, especially if he does get his items, because he's got that massive shield with his E, and it just makes him a really good front line for team fights. His ultimate is very good for roaming as well. Once you do hit level 6 as Tahm Kench, if you're ahead in lane, then look for a roam down mid lane. You can even go top lane if you want. Just make sure that you tell your AD carry to play safe and don't like overextend in the lane, because Tahm Kench's roaming is actually pretty good with his ult, and he does have pretty good damage for a support. His Q actually does a decent amount, and then if he gets the chomp off on his opponents, if he uses his W on them, then that does quite a bit of damage as well. And a few cons to Tahm are that he can get kited pretty easily since he does not have a gap closer or some sort of movement speed buff in his kit, and he is also pretty weak if he does fall behind. So next up I have Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank, the main reason why he's on my list is because his hook is pretty game changing, and as long as you can land that in the laning phase, then you can just absolutely snowball the laning phase to the point where you can just zone the enemies from CS and they won't even be able to come into lane because of the presence of your hook. He's a really good pick if you pair him up with Mordekaiser. I would definitely recommend trying out that lane if you haven't already, because the lane it's just so strong, because if Blitzcrank lands a hook, the enemy's pretty much dead, or they're gonna have to burn their flash, because the damage that comes out of that combo is really, really good. He's also great with the talisman item. It just provides so much movement speed for him, and it just allows him to look for picks with his Q if he does get ahead. His AoE silence is also really nice for team fights, for negating the enemy's high damage abilities like a Katarina ultimate, or if the enemy jumps in on your AD carry in a team fight, if they use a CC ability, or before they use their CC ability, you can silence them and give your AD carry a little bit of time to position correctly. And he is also great if he does get ahead, because he can always look for those hooks. And he's also got pretty strong crowd control. His Q, his E, and his ultimate all provide some sort of CC. A few cons to Blitz though is that his ultimate's passive is pretty annoying, and I don't know why it's even in the game, because I just end up taking CS from my AD carry when I don't want to, and he is kind of skill shot reliant with his Q. If you can't land your Q on Blitz, then he's kind of a useless champion, because his Q is the main part of his kit. So next up I have Thresh. Thresh is kind of like Blitzcrank, but I think he's a little bit better version, or I think he's a little bit of a better version of Blitzcrank. It really depends on the player though. I think that Thresh does take a lot more skill to play than Blitzcrank, because you need to know how to position correctly to use your lantern in the right situations. He's definitely got a little bit of a harder kit because of that. His Q is also, I think it's a little bit harder to land than a Blitzcrank Q, because the Blitz Q, I think it comes out a little bit faster than the Thresh hook, so you do have to have a little bit more accuracy when you're going for the hook with Thresh. He's got great crowd control though. His ultimate, his E, and his Q all provide CC. The peel that he has as well with his E and his ultimate is really good, and his W just allows him to save his teammates in a lot of different situations. He's got great pick potential as well with his Q, and his damage is also not bad for a support. The passive on his E provides some nice damage from his auto attacks in the laning phase, and then whenever he picks up his souls, he gets some extra AP, so once you get to the mid to late game, you actually can do a little bit of damage with Thresh. And he is also great at setting up ganks with his lantern. In solo queue, I rarely see Thresh players do this, and I think that's one of the things that differentiates a average Thresh player from a really good Thresh player. A really good Thresh player will know how to use his lantern, he'll set up ganks with his lantern, and you can just lane gank super easily if you have a good Thresh on your team, because he can just throw your lantern behind you. If you're playing a jungler who has some sort of gap closer, then you can just take the lantern, use your gap closer, engage on the opponent, and then it's really hard to just stop that kind of gank from happening, since you're probably not going to get warded behind your tower, and it just allows you to set up some really nice ganks. So if you are playing as Thresh, then look to use your lantern to its fullest potential by setting up some nice ganks in the laning phase. And one con to Thresh though is that he is a little bit harder to play in my opinion, because he does have a lot of different combos that he can use, and his lantern is definitely a big part of his kit, and I don't see a lot of Thresh players use it to its fullest potential. So next up I have Braum. I think that Braum is one of the best tank supports in the game. He's a pretty big meat shield with his E, and it just allows him to block a ton of damage in team fights, and he can just keep his AD carry really safe with all of the crowd control and with all of the damage negating spells that he has with his W and with his E. He's also got good engage and disengage. He can engage with both his, or he can engage and disengage with both his Q and his ultimate. He can soak a lot of damage in team fights as well, like I said, with his E. And his W gives a nice little gap closer to his teammate or to a minion, and it also gives some armor and magic resist as well, which just keeps his AD carry a little bit more healthy when you are going for trades. And he's also got a very good level 6 all-in, so when you do hit 6 as Braum, if you're playing with a strong level 6 AD carry, then definitely look to all in the opponents, because with your ultimate, with your Q, and with your passive, it provides so much CC, and you also do have pretty good damage with Braum's Q once you get a few ranks in it, that you can definitely look to go for a level 6 all-in with him. And one con to Braum though is that he does have some weaker lane matchups because he is a melee champion. So last but not least, on the top 5 for this patch, I have Nautilus, and I just want to let you guys know right now, I didn't really focus on an order for this patch. I just kind of think that these champions are all pretty strong, and don't focus too much on the order I put them in for this patch, because I think that all of these champions are very strong, but they're strong in different situations, so it makes it hard to come up with an exact number 5 spot or number 1 spot. So Nautilus, I still think he's a great support. I haven't seen really any of him lately in solo queue, and I really don't know why. He didn't really get nerfed really hard. I think the reason why he isn't seeing as much play in solo queue lately is because he's not played in competitive anymore. But I still think he's a great pick for a solo queue. He's got great crowd control. His Q, his E, his passive, and his ultimate all provide really strong CC. And he's got an overloaded CC kit in my opinion. It's just so strong. And if you can land that hook on the enemy AD carry in the laning phase, then you can follow that up with so much CC and damage that you're pretty much guaranteed to win the trade every single time. He's got great engage as well with his Q and with his ultimate. And the hitbox radius on his Q is really good too, so it just allows him to easily line up that skill shot and get a nice engage off. He also does have great single target lockdown with all of his crowd control abilities, and his W scales with HP as well, so the more health you get, the more your W is going to shield you for, so that just makes him a really good tank once you get to the mid to late game. He also does have the 3 to 4 second AoE slow late game, or his E is on a 3 to 4 second cooldown, so it's gonna be up pretty often, and you can use that in team fights really well to just peel for your AD carry. And I would recommend building some CDR on Nautilus, because then you will get that down to a 3 to 4 second cooldown, and you can just end up peeling for your AD carry really nicely in team fights. He's got the point and click long range knockup with his ultimate as well, which just makes it really easy to pick out the enemies when they are out of position. And in my opinion, he's got one of the best level 6 all-ins for any support in the game, just because of all the crowd control and damage he's got in his kit. And he does also have great damage for a tank. All of his abilities scale pretty well or they don't scale pretty well, they have pretty high base damages. His E's got a pretty high base damage. It did get nerfed a few patches ago, but it still does quite a bit of damage. I would recommend maxing out your E on Nautilus, because once you do get a few points in it, it's on a pretty short cooldown, and it also does quite a bit of damage. So I think that just due to Nautilus's really overloaded CC kit and the damage that he can do, he's a great pick for solo queue. But one con to note though is that he does have some weaker lane matchups because he is a melee champion. And first up on the honorable mentions, I have Brand. So Brand, the reason why he's not on my top 5 is because he doesn't have any sort of hard engage, or he doesn't have that game-changing ability like most of the champions on my top 5 do. He's a great laner because of all the poke he's got, and he's got really good damage for a support. So if your team is lacking damage, then I would definitely recommend picking up Brand for support. For example, if you've got like a tanky top laner and you've got a tanky jungle as well, then playing Brand support is actually a pretty good idea. Next up on the honorable mentions, I have Leona. So Leona is also a great engage support. She's got really good pick potential with her ultimate, and then followed up by her EQ combo. It just provides for a lot of lockdown and single target CC. She's one of the best champions when it comes to going for level 6 all-in. So if you are playing with a strong level 6 AD carry, then look to go for an all-in at level 6 with Leona, because as long as you can hit your ultimate, then you can follow that up with a lot of damage. Next up on the honorable mentions, I have Janna. So Janna is arguably one of the best disengage supports in the game, if not the best. She's got her ultimate, which just keeps her AD carry really safe, and as long as you can use your ultimate in the right situations as Janna, then your AD carry should never like get blown up at the start of a team fight, as long as you're with your AD carry, because her ultimate, her Q, and her W, as well as her shield, provides a really good peel, and it just all those abilities just allow her to keep her AD carry really safe. So if the enemy team locks some hard engage, then Janna is definitely a good pick to counter that. And last but not least, on the honorable mentions for support for this patch, I have Soraka. So Soraka is one of the most annoying supports in the game to play against because of her heals. If you're playing against a Soraka in the laning phase, then look to focus the Soraka down and look to poke her down rather than the enemy AD carry, because if you poke the enemy AD carry down, then the Soraka's just going to heal them back up to full HP, and there's really no point in doing that. So focus Soraka in the laning phase, look to kill her first in teamfights, because if you don't, then she's just going to be able to dish out a load of heals, and that's just really annoying, and it's really frustrating to play against when you are up against a Soraka. You get the enemy down to like 200 HP, and then Soraka just ends up healing them to full HP in the matter of seconds. It's pretty annoying, and that's one of the main reasons why I think she's a great pick for solo queue, just due to her insane heals, and also her silence is a pretty underrated part of her kit as well. I think that if you use that in the right situation in a team fight, it can definitely change the momentum of that fight. So that is all for the video, guys. If you enjoyed, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.